Okay, let's get started. We'll see other people join, I'm sure. Thanks for joining us today to learn out more about Cube Lab's Botrytis test. Let's get into it. So, what is our test? We have lateral flow test strips that help you detect Botrytis specifically in the field, in the lab. Once harvested, into the supply chain, we can detect quite a few different things that we're going to go over here. So, biggest reason we like these lateral flow tests is they're inexpensive. You can get quite a bit of them out in the field, large sample size. They're very reliable, very sensitive, and very specific. So we'll get into some of the use cases here in just a moment. You can see on this slide, this is the actual chemical reaction, if you will. These are the antibodies that we use to detect the Botrytis, and they just have a chemical reaction when they're present on the test strip, just like those new COVID at-home tests. It takes about 10 minutes to get final results and very sensitive. If you have any questions about some of the more scientific factors to this test, please just feel free to type your questions in up at the top left. There's a Q&A section up there, and at the end we'll open the floor and answer any questions. You can see here it's very accurate and correlates very well with known quantities. So there is the opportunity to get exact measurements in different situations. Again, we'll go over that, but this shows you the quantitative ability of our test here. If you look at the test strips from the left to the right, from 0 infection rate all the way up to a high level, the line gets darker and darker. So some of the key ways that we like to use our test are early detection, or what we call spore detection. It can help you diagnose the disease on the farm in minutes. You can validate your treatments, do things like avoid resistance and save on treatments that way. And then one of the big uses is actually post-harvest or just pre-harvest, knowing what's in your product before going into the supply chain. So I'm going to switch screens here and share a quick video that shows just how easy it is to use the test. If you'll give me just one moment.
Today we're going to show you how easy it is to use the Cube Labs Rapid Pathogen Test. Step 1, sample prep. You can sample the flower, leaf, stems, roots, or the fruit of your plants. Be sure to test both healthy plants as well as any that are showing signs of disease. The whole sample should be the size of a penny. Add the sample into the white capped bottle along with 3 BBs. Return the white and green caps and ensure they are snug. Shake the bottle for 15 to 30 seconds to break up the sample. Step 2, early detection. An early detection test is used to detect spores and early-stage infections. To perform an early detection test, add 1 germination pad into the sample bottle and leave it in a dark place for 12 to 24 hours before testing. Step 3, running the test. Take out a new test strip and test well. Make sure to reseal the test strip container. Remove the green cap from your sample bottle and squeeze 4 drops into the test well. Next, add 1 drop from the black-capped test activator bottle to the test well. Hold the test strip by the red handle and place the blue end into the test well. Let the test run upright for exactly 10 minutes. Step 4, reading the test. After 10 minutes, remove the test strip and read it using the guide on the instruction sheet. The top control line indicates that the test worked. The lower sample line indicates if a pathogen is found. The darker the line, the higher the pathogen level. Thanks for learning about using our rapid pathogen test. If you have any questions or would like to learn more, please visit cubedlabs.com.
Okay, so you can see there if you've run a pH test strip and compared it to the chart with the colors, you're probably well qualified to run one of our tests. It's quite easy. And jumping back into the presentation here. So moving test into the field, one important note that we like to share and we're happy to help set up is really integrating it into the current IPM program in field. So if you have scouts going out looking for bugs, other pathogens, taking soil tests, anything like that, you can take the little sample tubes into the field with you. And if you see something or you're just on a regular scouting mission, make sure you take some samples along the way. So we recommend, one test for about an acre. You can really spread these tests out and capture quite a bit of information from a large space. So we recommend about 5 samples at least. You can do more or less, but that helps you get a much broader view of what's happening in the field. So if you can see, you may want to consider some high traffic areas, taking a few extra samples. If there's, along pathways or roadways, if you have a large amount of foliage or, a forest on the perimeter of your farm, you may want to consider taking a few extra samples from that direction just to ensure that you're catching when the pathogen enters the field. So, our favorite method again is early detection. So regular monitoring, regular testing allows you to determine when things are moving into the field. So there's a few different ways you can use it. And first method that we recommend using is for tissue sampling. And this can be done in about 10 minutes for final results. You can use the leaves, you can use stems, the flowers, the fruit, anything in the field that you want to know if it has botrytis or not, you can use our test strips for. And this gives you the immediate what has an infection or not. Maybe you see a sick plant and you want to know a little bit more. Maybe it's botrytis, maybe it's fusarium, something else. You can do a quick test and know exactly what it is. Things like moving plants out of cold storage. I know in California, different regions will be planting soon for winter harvesting. So coming out of cold storage, you can test a large batch of plants coming into the field and just see what kind of infection levels have creeped up after cold storage before planting, knowing what treatments you're going to need to do. Obviously, it's pretty common to just treat them and assume that it's there, but now you know exactly what's present or not, and prescribe a treatment effectively. Let's move on to the next slide here about early detection. So this is really the key to a successful application of our test. Again, you can take the samples from anywhere on the plant. We don't recommend root zone or soil samples because it tend to clog up the test strip. But if you wash off the roots, you can even use a root. Botrytis is not known to affect many berry roots, but if you wanted to use it there, you sure could. Or if you have different crops that it is susceptible at that region. So we recommend primarily leaves as the main collector of the spores, or in fruits, if you are growing grapes or strawberries, You can find spores up in the hidden kind of nooks and crannies of the fruiting, where the flower meets the stem. And it takes 12 to 24 hours to germinate the spores. So all you do, like in that video, you put the samples into the sample tube, you add the germination pad, and all you have to do is put it back in the box or in a dark, cool place, let it sit for 12 to 24 hours. And when you run the test after that germination phase, you're no longer testing what's an active infection, but those spores had germinated, and now you can measure that that spore level, and we can help you determine, based on the readings off the test, how many, a rough estimate of how many spores are present in that sample, so you can assess your risk. And we've probably all seen this kind of plant health pyramid, plant disease pyramid. First, a lot of work, incredible work has been done over the years to give the plants, through genetic work, to reduce the susceptibility to these pathogens. Strawberries are notorious for their susceptibility to botrytis and several other pathogens. So we know we have a susceptible host. Grapes, similar. There's a large variety that are susceptible to botrytis. You also have to have the right environment. We all know botrytis outbreaks typically occur with high humidity or standing moisture for 12, 24 hours. But if the pathogen's not present, then you're not at risk. So, that's where our test really stands out, is you can track things with weather models, all of that great work from academia. And you can add on a layer of a risk profile by early detection and know if you have the pathogen present or not, or determining where it is in your field and maybe target treatments a little bit more specifically. A lot of great ways. Early detection, if you're growing in a greenhouse or in a controlled environment, there's an opportunity to detect spores as they enter into the facility, or circulation fans, HVAC systems, things like that. We recommend you just take a sterile cotton swab or Q-tips, and you can just swab a good surface area and put that cotton right into the test tube, do the germination period, and you can see kind of where the flow of these spores is happening. We can also help provide and set up air sampling. If that's of interest to you, just let us know and we can help you set up those types of protocols so you can see not just botrytis, but there's a lot of other information flying around in the air that we can help you uncover. Another one, especially for the berry world, we're on tight schedules with berries. You're spraying, doing some work in the field, letting that sit, and then you're on a tight schedule. Once a week, you're out in the field harvesting the next round of ripened berries. Grapes and some of these others crops aren't quite as consistent, so you have a little bit more time to manage treatments. But it's really important to know if you're going to do a spray and a treatment, say you're mixing a pesticide and a fungicide, or maybe you're withholding one or the other based on scouting reports, we think that our test is very effective for determining how effective your fungicide treatments are. So a few days after you do your treatment, what we recommend you do is go out into the field, take a good sample set, and do that immediate test. Takes 10 minutes, and that gives you a baseline measure of what was in the field. It is important to note that our test does not differentiate between dead and live Botrytis mycelium. So if you had an effective treatment, you'll still pick up what was present before the treatment. The key to it is running a second test after that germination phase. And what that'll tell you is if that mycelium is still a viable infection. If the signal, if that red line, that test strip gets a little bit redder, a little bit darker, that means you still have an active infection. We can also provide you with one of these simple, it's a laser scanner. We call it the cube reader, and it directly measures that quantity, and we can help you set up a system using this as well for a fully quantified, very accurate measure on effectiveness. So after your treatment, run that cycle of immediate tests, let it germinate. If there's an increase, that means you have either viable infection that can still take over your plants, still producing additional spores and spread throughout the farm, or maybe you didn't catch all the spores, and in that environment that you're still at risk of an infection because the chemical or treatment didn't take out the spores. It also is an opportunity to check the protocols that you're using. It's hard to get complete coverage of any crop, let alone things like strawberries, grapes, raspberries. So if you want to do a double check and just see if your protocols, if the your field workers are doing things the right way and getting adequate coverage, you can test some of those hard to get areas of the crop and see what's still lingering behind after a treatment. Again, the other key thing is most fungicides are very effective at knocking down an infection, but there's still latent infection internal in the fruit, internal into the leaves, and sometimes our treatments don't get that. And especially to knock out spores, the humidity event may happen a few days after your last treatment and still give you a continued infection. So determining what's in the field, hidden unseen spores in the nooks and crannies of the plant, you can go out and see what's still present after a treatment and have some confidence going into your next treatment. Maybe you don't need to do quite as tight of a rotation of fungicide, or the other opportunity is to see if you have a resistant strain of Botrytis, to your copper-based fungicide or whatever it is that you've been using. You may build up a resistance to that, and this is an opportunity to see if that is if you need to rotate your fungicides, maybe tighten up the spray schedule. A lot we can do there. Would be happy to speak with you and get a system in place on your farm with a very, each farm situation is different. So we like to support you in protocols on that. For pre and post harvest, there's a lot of quality control measures that the farm has to manage. So with our test, it's an opportunity to, even before you harvest, you can get a good sample size of fruit, taking it out. And most people, I've heard everything from taking 100 berries or 1,000 berries and putting them in sheet pans, humidity domes, sending them off to the lab. It's all time-consuming, lengthy process. And in the end, you can get a quantity or a percentage of your berries that are infected with Botrytis, knowing what's, what's available for shipping needs or cold storage. All of these factors going into the supply chain. We need to know what's going on in the crop after it's harvested. So with our ability to quantify the infection level and help you correlate that back to a percentage of infection, again, with the right protocols, maybe with our cube scanner you see on the screen here, we can definitely help you in that world. Last year, we were on a 300-acre vineyard for table grapes, and we were able to do some work with this group. We took a number of boxes already packaged home. They had not been surface sterilized, but they were immediately shipping over into the cold storage facility in Central California. And when we ran our testing on it, we found out that there was about a 15% latent infection hidden inside the berries. The outside all looked really good, ready for market. But once we started running our tests, we crushed the grapes and just pulled a single, just one milliliter per test out of that grape juice. And we were able to quantify that at 15%. We weren't in a full partnership with this group. We were doing some trial runs. So unfortunately, they still shipped off all of that product, spent the time on packaging, labor costs, cold storage costs, and turned out that they had a 15% infection rate, and they lost about $1 million in product that year. So last year in Central California, it was quite a bad season for a lot of people. And with the Cube Labs test, they would have known exactly what to expect, which areas to avoid harvest, maybe send them off to a winemaker instead of cold storage for table grapes. A lot that can be done there. And again, we're happy we can set up custom calibrations for your group. If you have a special requirement, whether that's percentage of berries infected, or we can even correlate to a total fungal biomass if you're formulating something with your end product. Let us know, and we can help provide some pretty cool calibrations and usable data for you in the field. So that's all for today. Wanted to open it up to questions and answers. Anything that came up there, we're more than happy to. For those watching the recording, feel free to give us an email at hello@Cube Labs. We're more than happy to discuss your farm's needs and how we can help you there. But wanted to open it up to the people on the line if you have any questions. And again, for those of you who missed it, the question box is just right up in the top left of your screen. You can just type your questions in there, and we're happy to answer. Okay, yeah, great question. So cost of our test kit, it comes in 25 packs. I have one right here. So test kit comes in its own packaging like this, and every piece that you need to run 25 tests is $300. So that would be $12 per test. We are having for these webinars, we're happy to give you our webinar discount at 25%. And at volume, obviously, we like to support our farmers, and we can negotiate price at volume. And in addition to the test strips, this cube reader retails for $350. So, for regular in-field testing, it's not really necessary, but if you really need a quantifiable result, this is a great piece of equipment that can help you get those answers. Any other questions? Another great question. The question is, I'm not clear on when you wait 24 hours versus 10 minutes. So the 24-hour period is what we call a germination phase. So the spores of the pathogen are going to come in, typically aerial transmission, so blows in on the wind, they land on your plant, and then they really don't do anything unless there's that humidity event. So what we're doing with our germination phase in taking the buffer tube, it's distilled water, deionized water. We create with that germination pad, we give it a little bit of food and create the perfect environment to germinate those spores. And that's what that 24-hour period is. So if you're just diagnosing something in the field, or you want a quantification of something in the field, the test strip, there's the test worked line, the top line, and then there's the test line that tells you the pathogen level. You'll start seeing both of those develop before 10 minutes, but that 10-minute time frame is when it's complete, and then you remove the test strip from the test well. So if you're in the field and you want an answer right now on what something is, that's when you would use the immediate test that takes 10 minutes. If you want to know and assess your risk level, you would do the 24-hour germination phase, and that gives you a good indicator of what's happening before infection sets on. So you can determine, hey, we see a rain event coming, or there's a lot of alert systems. I believe there's a really great system out of the Clemson University that can help you determine your risk factor based on purely weather, dew factors, humidity, moisture events. There's a lot that can be done there. If you want to really get a good idea of what your risk is of infection, you can run that 24-hour germination phase and tell what's present but not showing or not active infection. I hope that clarified there. The other portion that we recommend in validating a treatment was effective and you don't have resistance or things like that. If you get that baseline, run the 10-minute test a few days after your treatment, go out into the field, take your samples, run a quick test, get a baseline. Maybe there's nothing that showed up. Maybe you had a small amount of botrytis present. If you let it germinate for that 24 hours, then you can see if that botrytis is still actively impacting your plants, or if there's spores that were still active and have the potential to germinate, which would then direct you on your next spray, whether that's timing or maybe changing up the chemistry of your treatments. Any other questions? Got another question here. What crops and species does it work for? So we've all tissues. It's worked. Some of the woodier, for a woodier stem, you're not going to have the best results unless you break up the plant material pretty well before putting it into the buffer tube. We provide the BBs to help break up the sample. But we've seen some of those woodier plants have lesser results unless you kind of break them up a little bit more, expose more of the internals to the liquid. But we found it works on almost anything that you can throw at it. It's specific to the Botrytis genus. It reacts with all of the different species inside of that genus. So pretty robust. I've seen a little bit different form of Botrytis on, say, onions than strawberries or grapes. and we can determine both of those levels with the same level of accuracy. So it's quite a flexible crop. We even have people that go and test the surrounding areas of wildlife and wild plant life to see what's going on in their surroundings before it crosses over into their field. So we've tested on grapes, tomatoes, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, raspberries, hemp, some grass stuff. We didn't find anything on the grass, but it's definitely as a mulch environment. Maybe that's a source of botrytis for people. We've tested quite a bit of different crops and been able to find botrytis on all of it. Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, we like to keep these webinars short and to the point. So thank you again for joining us at Cube Labs. If you have any follow-up questions or would like to give us a call, you can get us at hello@cubelabs.com. Our general line is on the screen here. If you'd like to call me directly, feel free to reach out. My direct number is 801-554-5599 if you'd like to discuss anything of how Cube Labs can support you in your farm or your facilities. This video will be recorded and we'll post on our YouTube channel. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can contact us there if you'd like. And we really appreciate you joining and hope to hear from you soon.